I want to welcome everybody to our June meeting, 6th month of the year, and we're still sitting at home in our shops. It's been strange. So I have no idea what's going to happen in the future. I've had a couple of people ask me if starting in July we're going to meet face-to-face. I don't know yet. Kind of watching around the country, states that opened up before us, they're starting to see a large spike again in new cases. So Michigan, we're kind of late to the game, so we'll have to see what's going on with that, because I would prefer not to put anybody's lives in danger. So with that, I'm going to start off with, do we have any guests here today? You unmute yourself and speak up.
Hi, Matthew Valentine.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi.
Are you new to the club?
Oh, actually, Paul Zirkle invited me. We had a mutual friend. Yeah, we had a mutual friend, and I turned in college, and I looking for a hobby to do, and he connected us, and Paul said to join, and that's where I am.
It's a good hobby. It's the crack of woodworking. So
cool. Great. Another addiction.
Yeah, exactly. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. Anybody else? I know we have a couple guests from afar. Okay, well, I guess I'll mention them. Rebecca DeGroot is with us today. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, yeah, I invaded again. Thank you guys for having me. I love it here.
We love having you here.
Yay.
And didn't we have the gentleman from down in Louisiana? I'm scrolling through looking for his name, and I can't seem to pull it up.
Was it Keith Hessler?
Not sure. I am not sure. Well, okay.
I'm Keith Hessler. I've been here for a while.
Okay. Okay, well, welcome. Anybody else? Okay, moving on then. I'm going to do, of course, we've had our Facebook challenge going on again this month. We have a few less people than we had last month, and took a lot of reminders. So I just want to reiterate to everybody that our Facebook page is part of your membership, and it's there so you can exchange ideas and help each other out, and it's just a wonderful resource. So make use of it. Make use of it. So I'm going to do the drawing for the Facebook challenge, and I'm also going to do the President's Challenge at the beginning of the meeting while we have everybody here. Sorry, my tablet almost fell over. So, okay, so I have my little number counter here on the phone, and I'm going to put in the range. There's one, and 32 people for the Facebook challenge. And we're going to run it. Number 2, the Facebook challenge winner is Chris Miller. So Chris, you'll be getting a certificate. On the President's Challenge, we had 6 people that either posted pictures on Facebook or sent the pictures to me because they were having issues with doing that. And then I put the pictures on Facebook. They were Phil Stevens, Paul Newberger, Richard Megnack. Is it Meganack? I'm sorry if I butchered that. Sandra Doran, Craig Droids, and Greg Smith. So I'm going to update this. And the winner is Sandra Doran, who had a really cute bird coming out of an egg. So anyways, Sandra, if you're with us today, you'll be getting a gift certificate from Craft Supplies. So anybody got any questions on the Facebook or President's Challenge before we move on? Okay, I am happy to report that even though we're not using it today, that the club now does have a Zoom account. I finally got it all figured out. They weren't accepting our credit card, and Chuck insisted we have money in the bank, so I trust them. And but we do have we have a Zoom account now, so I'll be working on figuring that all out, and we'll probably use it for the next meeting. And I'm also going to talk. I'm going to try to get together with Matt, Chuck, and Paul Newberger to talk about how we would use Zoom in a live meeting once we get back to the Pontiac Creative Arts Center. There's some technical parts of that that I don't understand, and Paul knows our camera setup, and Matt and Chuck are the real, technical whizzes when it comes to Zoom, and so I'll be asking for their help. Just a reminder to especially our new members, but also to our members who have been turning for a while. Steve Rohr is our mentor of the club, and he has established a way of doing it through Zoom, and he is offering that. If you need help with something, if you're new, if you're a seasoned turner and you're still having problems with something, get a hold of Steve. He'll set up a Zoom meeting with you, and you guys can go over it together, and he'll help you along. That's what he does. That's what we've got him for. And he is very knowledgeable and a very easy person to work with too. So I got to say that. Does anybody have a tool review? I thought I was going to have one, but I don't. Okay, last call and tool review. Okay then, next up is our July demo. We need somebody for our July meeting to do a demo. I know I put that out on email to everybody. I've not got a lot of responses, or I haven't gotten any responses. So think about it. It's not a hard thing to do. You can have a setup like Matt Harbour has, or you can have a simple setup like Paul Newberger used last month, where he just used his phone, and it worked great. We had a wonderful demo. So if you can do that and would like to give it a try, we would love to have you step forward and do that. So, and I do need to know soon on that, because if we don't get a volunteer, then we're going to have to go outside of the club, and that's going to take some arranging and things like that. So. Also, next Saturday would be, beg your pardon? Oh, thought somebody spoke. Next Saturday, June 20th, would be our normal Zoom workshop. Our first workshop went really well. We learned a lot from it. There'll be some new things we do. However, right now, we do not have anybody to do a workshop for us. So I'm looking for somebody to do that. And if we don't get anybody, then we won't have a workshop. And one of the things we talked about was possibly boxes, lidded boxes. But if you got something else that you think that we would be good in the workshop that we haven't done in a while, please let me know, because I'd like to get you set up and everything. And we can even set up a test period for you to try things out with your phone or your cameras or whatever, and get that taken care of. So that's basically it for any announcements and things that I have. Does anybody have any questions or announcements that they want to make before we move on?
Jeff, this is Chuck. If somebody wants to do a demo or a workshop and is a little nervous about the tech, I'm more than happy to help out.
Yeah, Chuck has always been there for us. And like I said, we can set up a test and everything beforehand. That's what we did with us, Steve, for today's demo, and I think that's important too, to be able to do that. So, thank you, Chuck.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Yeah, when I did my demo, we set it up with Chuck, and he and I practiced a little bit, and it worked out well. So, it's simple. It was really simple with the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what we can do with our phones now. I live on mine. And as a matter of fact, the live Facebooks that I did on our Facebook page was done with my phone on a tripod. So press a button and continue turning. That's basically what it boiled down to. So anything else? Anybody? Okay, then. We're going to move forward with our demo today, which is Steve Rohr, who's going to demonstrate some off-center turning that pretty much anybody and everybody can do. So, Steve, when you are ready, the floor is yours.
Have you got me unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, happy Michigan Haircut Day -1. I guess what I'd like to do today, we're going to talk about off-center or multi-axis turning. And I'd like to show you some examples first, just so you get some kind of a feel. This is not new to us. We've been doing, as a club, we've been doing multi-axis turnings. We just maybe don't think of it that way. So let me show you some examples. This is a classic example of multi-axis turning. We started in a spindle, and then we went this way. 2 axes. When you stop to think about it, a sphere is a multi-axis. You start off with 1 axis, you turn it 90 degrees, you turn it again at 90 degrees, and then you just keep turning it. You are changing the axis as you make this round. Now, I took it one step further and put a little star on it. You could put a hashtag or whatever, and I'll show you the jig that I used to make this. As long as we're talking about spheres, well, hootie, you know, there's a good example of multi-axis turning. The sphere is multi-axis, and then the eyes, the way that we carved those, was all multi-axis turning. This is one of my wife's favorite, the penguin. That was multi-axis turning. We never got Jason Clark because of the virus. But one of the things that he was going to do for us is turn a spiral box. So there is a spiral box. 3 sides, multi-axis. Now, when we had Mike Hoslett here, and I don't know how many of y'all remember, but when Mike Hoslett was here, one of the things that I wanted to do with him was he has kind of a very unique way of doing this type of multi-axis turning. And I wanted to see how that was done. So this is the first one of these I ever did, and it was, I don't know, maybe, how long ago did we have Hoslett here? 4 years ago? Something like that. So, so I am by no means an expert on multi-axis turning, but the good news is it's not all that hard to do. In my exploration, one of the things that I ran across was a lady by the name of Barbara Dill. I believe she's out of Virginia. And she's just a wealth of information on how to do multi-axis spindle turning. So the very first one that I did was this. It's just basically a ribbon. It's an arc and a cove with 90-degree offsets or 180-degree offsets. Very easy to do. From there, one of the things that I was intrigued with was a spiral. This happens to be done with, quite frankly, a spindle roughing gouge. Very easy. It's simply, how do you lay it out? And, you know, how do you keep track of your markings? How do you mount it? Now, when we think of multi-axis spindles, there's really two things to look at. One is you can have the axis be parallel to the center axis. So that's one form. Another form is when you take it and you offset it on a skew. And when you do that, you end up with a twist like this. Now, if I combine that ribbon that I showed you and the twist, in this case, this one is a twist of 120 degrees. This is a twist of 90 degrees, and it combines the cove and the bead to form a nice ribbon with an offset or with a twist to it. So from there, after watching numerous Barbara Dill videos, and by the way, she has a wonderful book. Here, let's see if we can, well, we'll put it this way. It's backwards, and I apologize for that. But
It's not
multi-axis, it's not backwards?
Nope, it's not backwards.
Okay, great. Which camera am I on?
You're on your front view camera, the one you're looking at.
Yeah, okay, all right. For me, it's backwards. Anyway, this is a wonderful book. I think it's like 20 bucks on Amazon. It is definitely worth the $20. It's just outstanding. She shows how to lay out the wood and how to predict the kind of shapes you're going to get based on how you lay the wood out. She has a series of 4 quadrants that she uses. If you lay the wood out in a parallel axis, that's one row of that matrix. And if you lay the wood out on a skew, that is a second row of the matrix. And then if you cut a shape and the tool ends up at some point when you're done in air, then that's called an arc in her definition. And if you turn it where it is not touching air, that's called a circle. So those 4 parameters, whether it's parallel, skewed, arced, or circle, make up the 4 quadrants. And she has numerous examples of the kinds of turnings that you can get with those 4 combinations. It's just an excellent book. Strongly recommended.
Want me to show the quadrants, Steve?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
So here's an example of kind of an abstract turning. I don't know if you can see that maybe better that way. This was done with off-center turning. I call this rodeo drive. This is a lady with her sun bonnet, sun hat. There's her face, there's the front end, there's the back end, there's the knees, and there's the high heels. And she's off to go do some shopping in Rodeo Drive. So nice way to come up with some abstract art. You have to use your imagination a little bit, but another example. There's another good example of off-center turning where these are circles as opposed to arcs. I call this particular piece growth because for me, off-center turning is a growth study. So that's it for the examples. One of the things that when you get into this, you've got to try to figure out how you're going to hold the wood. And if you're doing spindle turning, it's basically pretty straightforward. You're just going to keep it between 2 points. But the points kind of matter. because as you get thinner and thinner and thinner, you can't put a lot of pressure between the 2 points or you'll crack the wood. So a drive like this, which is an excellent drive for most spindle turning, but it's based on friction. And this is a very poor example of a drive you'd want to use if you're going to do off-center turning with a very narrow piece of wood. So one of the things you might consider is a 4-prong drive. And they work great, but sometimes they can be way too big in diameter. So you might want to consider a smaller 4-prong drive. If you want, you can go with a Robert Sorby type stub drive. They work really good. Again, the size can be rather large. You can get a small one. That one happens to be 5/8. The other one I think is closer to 7/8. So when I turned the sphere that had that kind of a pattern on it, that was all done on the lathe, and all I really did was offset the sphere from the center. How do I do that? Well, I made a little jig. Basically, you start with a block of wood, you cut 2 rabbets, you can take a 4-jaw chuck, take 2 of the jaws out, and then this will fit into the 4-jaw chuck. And you can slide it back and forth. I happen to put a nail in the end, and that centers it for me. I then turned basically a jam chuck, and that held the headstock side of the sphere, and I could offset it from the center. Now, how do you hold the tailstock side? Well, you make a jig for the tailstock. This is a straightforward, this is a Powermatic Live Center. Powermatic one way, they both have basically a, I think it's a 3/4 by 12 thread on it. The Beal company sells a tap for 3/4 12. So simply take a piece of wood, or in my case, a piece of Trex, and tap a hole in it and thread it onto your Live Center. And now, as you put that in there, that will hold from this side, or from the tailstock side, the ball as it's spinning, and it'll keep it in that jam chuck on the drive side. So you're going to end up making lots of different types of jigs to hold the wood, depending upon what shapes you want to do. Probably the ultimate that I've seen of people that make jigs, take a look at take a look at a turner by the name of Michael Foster. He's out of Vermont, and his website is breezyhillturning.com. He does mathematical figures, just phenomenal work. But in order to make those turnings, he will spend maybe a month trying to come up with ways to hold the wood on the lathe while it's spinning to come out with those shapes. Now, one of the things that I did quite a while back was I invested in what I consider to be the ultimate off-center jig. This is a jig from Ron Brown. I don't know that I would spend this kind of money again. You could probably make something very similar out of plywood, but this mounts onto the headstock, and it has, in my case, it has a 1.25 by 8 spindle coming out of it. Depending upon how you rotate it here, you get completely centered or you get it completely offset. And then you can make lead weights or steel weights or whatever you want to use, and you can basically offset the vibration by adding weight to it. So this is what I'm going to call the ultimate off-center jig. What's really nice is that once you have it set up, now you can put your 4-jaw chuck on this side and hold your wood. So, okay. So, enough talking about examples and holding wood and whatnot. I'm the kind of guy that I enjoy the journey much more than the destination. If I ever get a finished piece, that's okay. But it's the process of getting to that finished piece that really gets me going. But not everybody's like that. And when we start to look at demos in our club, we always seem to want to get to a finished piece. So today I'm going to show you a very simple off-center turning that every one of us in the club can do, regardless of the size of your lathe. What we're going to do is we're going to make a little weed pot. Okay, a weed pot, a twig pot, there's all different kinds of names. But you'll end up with something that'll look like that. And I'm going to do this start to finish, including the finish. So you'll see the whole process. Now, in addition to enjoying the journey, I'm also I have to admit, I'm a YouTube junkie. I really, really like watching YouTube videos. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a demonstration that was done, I think back in the 2009, 2010 timeframe by just a wonderful turner out of Georgia by the name of Mark Soleil. So you'll see basically his demo today done by me. So I'm not going to, certainly don't want to take credit for something that that someone else has done. But I did want to show you because it's an easy thing for just about everybody to go do. So with that said, the other thing that I would strongly recommend is we're going to be taking this wood off center, out of balance. The chances of it flying are relatively high. And today they're even higher because Murphy laws is definitely going to kick in. So we may lose a piece. And if we do, we do. It's, not the end of the world. But wear a full face shield. Don't just depend upon safety glasses. Wear a full face shield because when it comes off, it typically comes off pretty violently. Okay. On to the demonstration. Matt, you may want to, I don't know. We'll just leave it here for right now. If you want to move it to the top camera or to the front camera, that's up to you. One other point, I don't see any kind of chat messages. So if you have a question, there's a couple ways we can do it. Just unmute yourself, ask the question. I can talk and work at the same time. That's not a problem. If you're uncomfortable with asking it out loud, if you'd send the message to Jeff, Jeff will monitor the chat and he can ask the question. Jeff's not shy. I'm sure he will relay your message. But at any rate, feel free, ask away.
There's nothing in chat yet, Steve, so
Okay.
you're good to go. People can ask questions in chat to everyone, and the rest of us can try to answer too, which is another way to carry on the conversation.
Okay. When it comes to roughing a spindle, my go-to tool is a roughing gouge. Obviously, you don't use this on a bowl, but I always use this as my tool of choice. There's other people out there that'll use a bowl gouge. There's people out there that'll use a skew. They all work. All we're going to do is get this thing around.
Steve,
Yes.
got a question. Are you starting directly on center?
I'm starting directly on center.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to turn this up a little bit. I don't know what's in this wood right now, so I'm not going to go crazy. I'm at about 1400 RPM here. And notice my body is moving the tool. My left hand is just along for the ride. Now I'm going to stop the lathe and inspect the wood, make sure that there's no cracks that we'll see. And it looks pretty good. So we'll move the tool rest a little closer, pick up the speed, and I'll be a little bit more diligent about how we cut this. Now you can take this roughing gouge and you can turn it on an angle and you'll get a cleaner cut, but I really don't care to do that right now. I'm just trying to get it relatively round, and it is. So now what I've got to do is I've got to turn a tenon on here because I want to hold this in a 4-jaw chuck. So I know that if I take a number 2 pencil and I put it on my live center and I run it up against the edge, that will be a perfect size for my 50mm jaws. And I'm just going to go down to that line. And I'm the most concerned about that point right there, right where the tenon meets the shoulder. I want that to be perfect clear. I don't want any kind of curve on that at all. And it is. If I had a problem with it, I would have no problem at all taking a skew, leaning on its side, and making that a very crisp corner. Now, with that said, how many of you all have, let's see, there we go. How many of you have Nova chucks? This particular one happens to be a record power, but it's the same kind of thing as a Nova chuck. I hope by now you realize that the outside of a 50mm jaw is a dovetail, but the inside is not a dovetail. It is a hook. And if you don't believe me, go check it out, put a ruler on there, and you'll see it is a hook. It is not a dovetail. So when I make my tenon, I make my tenons so that they are straight, and then that hook will grab towards the end.
Steve, the part that you were talking about that was most important to make sure it was square and not rounded is the part on the far bottom of the tenon, is that right?
Yes, actually I'll do it. I'll show you one more time because it's a little bit narrow.
Okay, we're looking at the top. Can you show us where that is?
If you can go to the end view.
The end view. Okay. The doohickey on the top of your tailstock is in the way of your tool. I can't see. If you could, yeah, that thing there.
Well, let's get rid of the doohickey. Would that help?
I don't know. Put the tool on the piece of wood. It's right in the way. If you could move the camera up like half a millimeter.
Let's try.
Or closer or something. All right, now, all right, now aim it downward a little bit. There you go. Let's try that.
All right, here we go.
Sorry, guys. Thank you. I wanted to be able to see what he was doing.
All right, so here we go. What I'm most concerned with is this point right there.
Okay, right in the where the things
Right where
meet.
the
Okay,
shoulder and the tenon come together.
thank you.
I want that to be very crisp. Now, what we're going to do, like I say, we're going to completely finish this project from start to finish. When I tighten this down, these are all basic things that I'm sure everybody knows, but for those few people that don't, make sure you go to each side and tighten it until it is very tight. I'm still going to bring the tailstock up. And all I'm going to do at this point is put a taper on this. Again, I'm going to use, actually, I'm going to use a smaller spindle roughing gouge, and I have ground this at 30 degrees. My normal spindle roughing gouge is more like 45. This will give me a very, very clean finish. In order to make a taper, I'm going to start on the end and take a small piece out. Then I'm going to back up about a quarter of an inch and do the same motion. I've got my hand running right along the taper on my tool rest. And this is a bit like watching paint dry, but we're simply making a taper by starting about a quarter of an inch back each time. I end up with a very nice taper, almost every time. Just a little bit more. One more. The other thing, I tend to use a spindle gouge with spindle work. I know a lot of people swear by bowl gouges for everything. That's okay, but for me, I like spindle gouges and spindle work. This is a classic grind on a spindle gouge. I'm just going to put a little shoulder, a little corner on this. Corner, I'm taking the edge off, and then I'm going to take a detail gouge. This is, I grind mine somewhere between 30 and 35 degrees, and I'm going to leave that tailstock up as long as I can. This is going to be the bottom of my weed pot, and I want a concave surface in it, just like you would with a bowl. Now I'm running at about 2,400 RPM. I'm going to get rid of the tailstock, but I'm also going to cut the speed down. Because if it's going to go flying, I don't want it going flying at that kind of speed. And all I've really got to do at this point is simply get rid of that little nib at the end. My left hand does not move. Everything is done with my body. There's no movement in my left hand at all. The bottom is turned. It's ready to go. Now, I'm looking at this. We could probably start with 220. I'm going to start with 150. I'm going to turn the vacuum on. We tested this before, and I think you can still hear me okay. Right now, I'm running at 1,500 RPM. That's way too fast to sand. I'm going to turn this thing down to more like 300. I'm going to get rid of the nervous marks down here on the end. Let's take, I don't know whether you can see this or not, but the dust is going right into my dust collector. I'm very happy with that. I could bring it a lot closer and probably capture more, but this is working just fine.
We can actually see that, Steve.
Good. I'm just going to progress through about three grits, maybe 4. I'm at 320 right now. I think that's all I need. This is the kind of project that is great if you do arts and crafts shows. These will sell like crazy. The reality of it is, though, is that you're not going to get much more than about $40 for them if you get that. So you need to come up with a way to make these very quickly. And what that means to me, being in a production town, manufacturing town like Detroit, is that we need to do these in stages. We need to batch them up. So what I would do is I would probably get to this stage, maybe to the next stage here, which is I'm going to put some sanding sealer on it. This happens to be a 50-50 mix of deft sanding sealer and lacquer thinner. So when I put this on, it will dry in about 30 seconds. And from there, I'm going to use a product called Yorkshire Grit. I'm not sure, I can't see it, but.
Now in the front view, Steve. You're now in the front view, looking at you.
Okay, so we're going to use a product called Yorkshire Grit. I get this from a fellow by the name of Jeff Hornig out of St. Louis. His website is, or his business website is called the Walnut Log. He is the exclusive supplier of Yorkshire Grit. It comes out of England, but he supplies it out of St. Louis. And so this is just a paste. It's a sanding paste. We're just going to kind of put it on like you'd put wax on a car. Maybe a little bit more. And we're going to sand it.
Hey, Steve,
Yes.
And when you're using sanding sealer, a lot of times you have to use those scuff pads before you put on the sanding grit. You don't do that with your sanding sealer?
I'm not sure why you would put a scuff pad on with sanding
You
sealer.
know those green scuff pads, they say so that it takes a better shine? I don't know.
I've never done this. Never
Some
done that.
some people feel that when you're using a sanding sealer, you're raising the grain up again, and that scuff pad will just take that little nib off.
Okay.
And then, especially with a lacquer-based sanding sealer.
Well,
Yeah.
we can take care of that. If I was going to do that, I would do it after I put the sanding sealer on to eliminate the raised grain. And I would use probably a Siasoft, maybe an 800 or 1,000 grit Siasoft paper. But for this project, and the fact we're only going to get $40 for it, I'm not going to stress over it.
Okay.
Okay. So I've got this thing sanded. We started at 320 with the paper. We're now up to around 1,000 with this sanding paste. I'm going to turn the speed up a little bit. I'm running now at about 1,300 RPM. I'm going to work that paste in with a little bit of heat. I'm very happy with the feel of it. Now I'm going to take a clean paper towel. I'm going to turn the speed up to maybe 2,000. And my goal here is simply to take off the excess sanding paste. I don't know whether you can see that or not, but there is a film on the cloth. So I've got to turn it.
A lot of pressure, Steve. Light pressure. What kind of pressure?
No, just medium pressure. If I was going to put a lot of pressure on it, I'd be sure that I have my face mask on, and I will put that back on here in just a minute. But I'm just moving the towel around until I don't see any more paste. And there's the finish. I don't know whether you might want to go to the top view. But the bottom of this weed pot is done. I'm not going back. It's done. We're ready to go. Okay. So now it's time to do the off-center part. So the first thing I'm going to do is use some of the jigs that I made. So we'll get rid of the 4-jaw chuck. We're not going to use that anymore. This is a jig that I made. It's basically a threaded 1 1/4 by 8 threading, again from Beal. It's just a piece of cherry. Goes onto my headstock. Just like that. The bolt that I put in there is a 3/8 inch bolt. It can be any size that you choose. I chose 3/8, but you want to make sure that that's a hardened bolt. Don't go using cheap steel. Get a hardened bolt from the hardware store. Cut it off. It's going to be a little tough to cut, but cut it off, thread it in, and you're good to go. Now, oh shoot, I forgot something. Getting ahead of myself here. What I want is I want to cut this off, and I'll show you why in just a second. But I am going to use the other jig that I made to give it a little bit more support as I'm taking a parting tool to it. And I don't know, we'll cut it maybe right about there. This is just a personal preference as to where you cut it off. And going way too fast for safety. And I could probably take this all the way down and catch the piece. Life would be good, but I don't do that. I just take a saw, and at this point, I'm done. Now, I need to hold this for my off center. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to drill a hole. I'm going to drill a hole off-centered somewhere in here. But what I want to do is I want to look at the grain and see what's the best side for show. And at this point, it's probably right here. Okay? And so I want my hole that I'm going to have for the weed pot probably right about in there. Doesn't have to be exact. I'm not going to measure anything. I'm just going to take it over to the drill press real quick and drill a hole. I'll be right back.
I'm sorry. Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah.
Did you decide to make that hole on the opposite side of the grain you like the best? Or?
Yes, I like that grain. I don't know whether you can hear. I like that grain.
Tip it forward a little. Tip it forward a little bit because it's washing out a little bit. Okay. Okay.
Okay. That grain's okay, but to me, that's the prettier grain.
Okay.
And so I want the hole opposite that. Okay, we now have a hole. I could have drilled that hole with a Jacob's chuck and used this as the bottom of my drill press and simply use the tailstock, the quill, to drive the piece into the drill bit. It's just easier to do it on the drill press.
What diameter did you drill, Steve?
Well, I'm going to use a 3/8 inch screw, I typically drill it somewhere between, typically 1/8 of an inch under that, sometimes a little bit less than that. I think on cherry, I'll tell you exactly what I used. I used 11/32, Mike. But it's going to be totally dependent upon the jig that you build. Okay, so now all we got to do is screw this on. And I made this screw very, very long. It doesn't need to be this long. I just happen to like it that way. And hopefully we're not going to have too big of a problem. When I parted this, I did not part it very straight. So we'll see. Hopefully Murphy won't get me. Okay. Clearly we're off center. Hopefully everybody agrees with that. Now, if ever there was a time to turn the lathe off and adjust the tool rest, it's on off-center turning. I'm going to go back to my standard grind spindle gouge. Now, if you watch a Barbara Dill video, or if you look at some of the other people online, they're using bowl gouges, they're using custom grinds on bowl gouges. To me, just a standard grind on a spindle gouge, for me, that's what works. Now I'm going to turn the speed up on this ever so slowly. I'm at about 800 RPM right now. I'm at 1,000. Now my lathe has a natural harmonic at 1,000. I could probably go higher than that, but you really don't need to. So I'm going to turn it back down to about 850. I'm going to anchor my left hand on the tool rest, and I'm simply going to present the tool. And if you look, my right hand is holding the tool against my hip. I'm simply going to shake my hip to the right. Just like that. My left hand becomes a fulcrum. Now with a spindle gouge, with any tool, but predominantly with a spindle gouge, I want to be slicing this wood. If I come into the wood like this, like a roughing gouge, I'm going to be basically paring the wood. I want to be slicing the wood. So I'm going to use the leading edge. Let's see. There we go. I'm going to use the leading edge of the spindle gouge, pretty much like I'd use a skew. I'm going to start with the flute partially closed. When I get to the bottom, it's a standard cove. We're just going to open the flute up. I'm going to raise the handle as I go because the diameter is getting smaller and smaller. And let's see, we probably need to move this back a little bit. I'm looking at this curve. It's not very much of a curve. So I'm going to take more off up here. Now this is kind of bouncy. The cuts aren't going to look very nice. We'll turn the speed up in a minute. That's a little bit closer to the shape I want. Maybe a little bit more in here. I'm hanging out quite a bit here from this tool rest, so we probably need to adjust that again. But that's not too bad of a shape to start with.
Would Barbara Dill call this an arc?
She would call this portion of it an arc, yes.
Thank you.
We're going to end up in a circle. Okay, I've taken a lot of the bulk of the wood out. So now I'm going to increase the speed a little bit. I'm going to try to take it up around 1500 RPM. I'm at about 14 right now. I'm going to simply start here and bring the tool back. I will feel where my next cut is. Again, I can't lift enough. The left hand should never move. Now, I don't know, can you all see the shadow line here, or the ghost image? You may or may not be able to see it, but I can tell that I'm getting very close to solid wood. And my cuts are getting a little cleaner. Again, I'm starting back here. I'm pulling the tool back until I can feel where that cut mark needs to start. And everything is being driven by my right hip. I got a big chunk that came out here. We'll have to fix that. That's a little bit better. It's still, there's still some chunks of wood out here, but if I go too much further, I'm going to run into this knot and hole. So I think we're going to leave that go for now. Now the rest of it is basically just finish on its own. Again, my left hand simply works as a fulcrum. My right hand is twisting the tool. My right hip is driving the direction. Now this is too big right here. We just whittle that away real easy. Again, my hip is driving the tool. And I'm into solid wood. So that makes life a whole lot easier. Then. This is a little bit like watching grass grow with an experienced turner. Now, if you've ever been to my workshop, you will have seen my straws. Okay? We are turning a spindle, and therefore we are in a spindle orientation. I want to go from the largest diameter down. If you don't understand that, come to my workshop, because that's a very important piece of information to understand. We're turning downhill. My coves are going to meet at the lowest point. And we've had better turnings. But I think I've got a flat spot right here. The hole that I drilled was a little too close to the edge. We're going to see if we can fix that without tearing things up too badly.
You can always make it a feature, Steve.
Okay. Now, Mike, what was the diameter of that hole I told you?
11:30 seconds.
11:30 seconds. So I want you to do some math for me now. Let's start off with, let's just make it 3/8. And let's put at least 1/8 of an inch on each side. So I'm looking at like 5/8. I don't want to go much deeper than that. Still got a little. Definitely have some nervous marks there. Okay, well, we can sit all day with that. So let me go get a caliper real quick. And I am running at right around 11/16, 3/4. So I have some room. I could come down a little bit further. I do have a little valley there we should probably get rid of. And I don't like this. This is going to be a lot of sanding. So we're going to see if we can take care of that a little bit. And then we're basically ready to put a finish on this one. In off-center turning, one of the things that I learned real fast is that you want to ride the bevel, but you want to more like glide along the bevel. Because if you push real hard, you're going to break the piece. That's a little bit better. We still have a problem out here, but for right now, that's good. Okay, so we're going to take the top, shape that a little bit. I'll do that with a detail gouge. Basically, I'm going to make V-cuts down here. Now, the fact that I had that extra long screw works to my advantage now because I can determine where I want that top to be, the top to end. And I've got a lot of freedom of choice. And take this right on down to the steel. And we're there. And then we have a little bit ways to go, but not much.
Steve, on the tail stock, on that piece of Trex, do you have a piece of rubber on that?
I do. It's just a piece of foam. It gives me a little bit more of grip, if you will. It's not going to hold it like a point. But it does hold it pretty good. There we go. Okay. Now, at this point, it's a simple matter of sanding. I'll show you a trick or two along the way. This part I don't like, so we're going to try to fix that right now. If I sand this with the lathe running, I'm going to lose that nice crisp edge that I made. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what you want. But the part that's offset, I'm going to sand by hand. I've got 150 in my hands right now. I'm not at all opposed to starting with whatever sandpaper I got to start with.
Hey, Steve?
Yes.
I want to let you know we're at an hour right now.
Okay, great. I will be done in about no more than 10 minutes. Jeff, I told you it might run a little long.
I understand.
Okay. Okay. Let's turn the speed down. And we're going to sand and get this nice. And we'll get this part nice. Yeah. If this weren't a demo and we were pressed for time, I would recut this, but I think y'all get the idea. Okay, that was 220. We're going to go to 320 real quick, and then we're basically done with the sanding. Now, just like on the bottom, I'm going to coat this with sanding sealer. I don't think I want to try to put this on with it running. It'll be a little hard on the hands. A little bit more of the paste. This is a little problematic, but again, because it's off center. I'm going to concentrate down here with the lathe spinning, and we'll do the major off-center piece with the lathe speed cut down quite a bit. I'm running at about 400 right now. I'm just working it in. It's going to be a little hard to get it off, but I think we can simply wipe it off. It won't be as good as putting some heat to it. Okay. Now we're almost done. At this point, you can take it off the lathe. But we have a problem. Actually, we have a couple problems. First, I don't know whether you can see it or not, but I've got a rough spot right here. I'm going to take care of that with either a knife or a skew. I'll probably take a knife to it. But more importantly, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I got the screw marks in there. So we're going to take care of the screw marks here. If you don't have one of these, you need to get one. This is, you need to learn how to operate it. This is a Home Depot or Lowe's strap tool. It will loosen just about anything on your lathe very quickly. So now, I'm going to take a Jacob's chuck, and the drill bit that I'm going to use, it's a 3/8 inch drill bit, but I have tapered, I've just put it on a grinder, and I've tapered the last maybe 3/4 of an inch so that it's significantly smaller than 3/8 of an inch. If I didn't do that and I went to put it in, it would wander all over the place. Now it's a self-centering reamer. We'll turn the speed to about, would help put it forward, to about 300-400 RPM. And all I got to do is ream it out. And the screw marks are gone. Now I would have to take either some sandpaper or a knife, and I can clean up the edge pretty quickly. One last thing to do. didn't run off on you. I'm still here. This is a buffing wheel that I made. I get the pads from Stuart McDonald. Takes 2 of them to really make it the way that I want it. I would typically start with a white diamond, but I'm just going to use wax on this for right now. I'm not going to run it more than about 600 RPM. I really don't need any more than that. And I don't want to put burn marks on this, in the wax. Bruce Groff was over at the house about a week or 2 ago, and we were talking about demos. And so many times you watch a demo and somebody will, typically it's like on finishing the bottom or something, you know, they don't take it all the way to the very end. And it's almost like, you know, here it is, and then a miracle happens, and then they show you the piece. Well, I've taken it to the end. And there, let's see. Show me the front view, Matt.
There you go.
There is the finished product. And actually, not quite done. I need to put a twig in it. There is the finished product, start to finish, finish and all. Now, we would batch these up. If we were going to make these for an art fair, we would batch them up. We'd probably turn everything around and put a tenon on it. We'd maybe make a dozen of them. And then from there, we would get the bottoms all squared away, and then drill the holes, and then do a batch of making the off center. So that's it. Any questions? Do we have anybody in the audience left?
We're still here.
Very good demo, Steve.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
There are still 42 people in the demo, Steve, and there are no
run
questions.
out, huh?
There are no questions in chat. No, it is fascinating. I love watching it. Well done.
Okay. All right. Jeff, turn it back to you.
Okay, Steve, very good demo. Thank you very much. And just a reminder, Steve is our mentor. So if you've got questions about this or anything else that you're doing in turning, or if you're new and you want to learn some new stuff, contact Steve. He's the guy to go to. He'll set up a Zoom just like we're doing right now, and he'll help you out. So, Steve, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
You actually held it differently than I thought you would. So I liked your way.
Well, I'd like to take credit for it, but like I say, I'm a YouTube junkie.
Right.
Hey,
So
Steve.
am I.
Steve,
Yes.
I don't know if you can see, but while you were turning, I turned one too.
Oh, great. Let's see it.
I don't know if you can see it or not, but
Oh, look at that. Very good.
something similar.
No, I can't. I'm looking at mine.
Oh, it's not even, mine is not even finished. So
Okay, well, Alfred, I'm glad you did that.
yeah,
And you should be a testimony to the fact that it's a pretty easy process to do.
it is.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's a bit intimidating in the beginning until you follow the process. But once you do it once, you say, oh, that's all there is to it, you know.
There.
But
Good.
it's pretty simple. Thank you, Steve.
Oh, look at that.
Well,
Very nice.
cool. Steve, we have a lot of people in chat saying thank you very much.
My pleasure, gentlemen
Thank you.
and ladies.
Okay. Well, that brings us to show and tell time. Did anybody bring anything to show?
I do.
Okay, Alfred?
Okay, in the beginning what happened? Oh, there it is. In the beginning when we started, we were talking about piercing. I went to get it. This is something that I pierced, and it's less than 330 seconds. And if you look at the inside, it's actually burned. So that tells you that high speed, well, this is cherry, so there is, the tonic oil in it is going to burn. But you can't go more than 330 seconds with the micromotor. Otherwise, you're going to have, it's going to struggle and it's not going to go through it. So I just wanted to show that. This one I showed earlier before we actually started. This is something that Pat Corral did. And I followed him and I carved it. There's a bowl, front and back, and it's carved over. Even the edges are carved. Then I did another one of these platters. This is cherry. It's about 17, 18 inches diameter. It's got the iridescent Joe Sonia paints on it, and it's finished with it's finished with lacquer, the Mohawk lacquer. And I got one other thing. It's this.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's scalloped in the back too. And actually, I have I kept the bark on it too. And this is sycamore. And there's some burning here. This is turned, but then I made a tip for it. That's hard to see. But up here, it's all burned. This is cut up. And then I use some patina on the top. This is green. I use some patina on the surface. So this is all finished with Mohawk lacquer. I really like that lacquer. You don't get any orange peel or nothing. Even if you put it on a heavy, it still flattens out. It's beautiful. That's all I got.
Very nice, Alfred. Hey, Steve, real quick. Dennis Montville said he's on another computer while he's watching this, and he's ordered Barbara's book already.
You're going to love it. You're going to love it.
You should get a commission.
There you go. One of the things that I really like about her book is at the end, she has a gallery of a lot of just wonderful turners that do off-center turning. That's where I found Michael Foster. Unfortunately, he does not do on-site demos because he would be great for our club. But Max Brosey's on there. Derek Wiedemann is in there. There's just a whole bunch of just outstanding turners. And if you haven't bought the book, go buy the book. It's just great.
Okay. Anybody else got something to show?
Yeah, I do. Let me see if I can spotlight myself here.
Is this Matt?
Yeah, I got it. So okay. This is an off-center one that I did not too long ago. This is actually the outside, the bark. It's very similar to what Steve just showed.
Oh, okay.
And I did an egg a while back. I think it was in Paul Newberger's workshop. I forgot I had it till I was out in the shop this morning and found it. So, all right, off to somebody else.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a.
Go ahead, Paul.
Who's on?
Hi, Paul. You're on.
Okay.
You're on, Paul. Mm-hmm.
I have this 3-winged vase I just finished yesterday. And
hold it up just a little bit more. There we go.
It's really hard to see it, but the chatoyance on this one piece on the back piece, this piece right here is unbelievable. You have to see it in person, but there you go. It really is a nice piece of wood. It's about 15 inches high, and it's crabapple.
Oh.
And it was really hard to turn on the inside.
Yeah, I bet.
And even on the outs, I left the bark, in certain areas.
Hey, Paul, what tool did you use for the inside to hollow it?
I used the Jameson jig.
Oh, good, beautiful. Did you use the carbide tip on it or the standard high speed?
Standard high speed because I didn't have a carbide for it, but I'm going to get one. And it was really hard. This thing was bouncing all over the place, so I had to go in with 60 grit sandpaper just on a piece of cork to sand it because it was almost impossible to sand. It came out in ridges.
Yeah, Ron Campbell has those. I believe he calls them the little
hogger.
Not exactly.
Little hoggers.
Yeah,
little
the
hogger.
little hogger.
Yeah.
They are wonderful. They really were good.
That's where I got
That's
mine
what I
from.
use also. I love them.
Yeah, you can see the chatoyance right now on it.
Yeah.
And it was.
So,
It was
Paul,
just-
when this is over, come over to my shop and I will show you the visualization camera that I have. It's hooked up to a 20-inch TV screen, and it would show you your wall thickness as you're cutting.
Well, I had to leave this a little bit thick because I wanted to leave the bark in, the occlusion here, in the inclusion here. So it's about a 1/2 inch thick. But I was really, pleased with the way it came out. And I just put Danish
that's
oil on it
awesome,
so far.
Paul. Good job on that. Awesome.
Outstanding.
It just has Danish oil on it so far. But I'm thinking about a lacquer when I'm finished.
Why?
I would leave it with an oil. There's nothing better than oil to show the wood.
Okay.
It's a beautiful piece, Paul.
Then it's finished.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
Yes, I've got something.
Who was that?
Jim Dunbar, James Dunbar.
Hey, guys, you can raise your hand in the chat, and that sets up an order for people to be called on, but we'll go with James next if I can find him. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I did this urn, a burial urn or funeral urn. It's ash and walnut with the insets here were epoxy. I tried to make them in green, but two drops turned into a squirt. So they got a little dark. And it does have the top does screw off. I've got it's a brass threaded set that I got. I can't remember who I got it from.
We're not seeing him. We're just seeing Paul still.
Oh. Well, I'll screw it back on.
No. James is spotlighted for me, Jeff.
No,
Oh, really?
I can see him in the corner. I don't see him anywhere. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
There he is. Okay.
So this is an urn that I made. I've been trying to do it for a long time. Made it for myself. People ask, why did you make an urn? Well, who else is going to make it for me? And I can't make it when there's a need basis, so make it ahead of time.
What wood is that?
These are supposed to be green. They do show a little green, but as I said before, two drops of trans tint turned into a squirt and got a little dark, but the top does screw off. It's got brass insert. I don't know if you can see it there. This is a gasket, rubber gasket that'll seal it up. Ash and walnut.
James, I think you can get the threads from antlers to walnut or antlers to wood.
That's the name, yes. Antlers to walnut. Yep, that's where I got it from. They're a little pricey, but I'm worth it.
You'd put a zipper in it, you could have then been able to go out for lunch once in a while.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, next in line that had their hand up was Ben.
All right, tell me when I'm ready.
You're ready.
Okay. I tried to get so I can see this. I did some texturing on a little platter, and then I airbrushed the whole thing and then sanded back the paint so it left it in the divots of all the texture. It's just a
Cool.
on a plaque thing.
That's nice, man.
And then this one might be hard to see up close, but I made a top that's acrylic with burl on the bottom.
Wow.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to
Had
see.
a ball bearing on the bottom?
Yeah, there's a little 1/4-inch ball bearing on it.
How long does it turn?
This one wobbles a little bit. Probably about 30, 40 seconds. But it's not the style, you can't really spin hard.
Oh, okay.
It just kind of.
Well, that's
That's
not
pretty
bad.
good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, it's not up to my standards, so. I think the wood is not, I mean, it's not even, obviously, so.
Well, you don't have the same
Well,
density in the wood,
yeah,
so it's heavier on one side than the other.
yeah. All right, that's it.
Okay, next we had Rebecca.
Hey, hold on. Let me make sure you guys can see it okay. My lighting is kind of weird right now. Okay, can you see it?
No, I just see
Yep, yeah.
Ben.
Okay. Oh,
There you
how about
go.
now?
There we go.
Okay. So this is a piece I just finished. It's called
Cool.
Gnaw. And it's a lidded box. You can see it's pretty deep. The wall thickness I had to keep kind of thick so that I could attach the legs pretty securely. And actually the legs aren't completely glued in yet. I made this so that it could be entered into the Wood Symphony Gallery's Inside the Box show. And I found out 2 days ago that it got in. So it's in that show right now. It's just an online gallery showing with a bunch of other artists. Actually, Pat Carroll is one of the artists that's being shown there too. But yeah, this is what I did. And so the box is turned and the teeth are turned, but everything else is carved. And I made these little kind of protruding hips. I don't know if you could see that very well. By creating a band around the box and then just carving everything that wasn't one of the hips.
That's beautiful.
Very
Very
cool.
nice. Very
Yeah.
sharp. It's cool to see in person, Rebecca.
Ah. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
next in line was Big Bob.
No, sorry, I don't have anything.
Oh, I thought you
They
said in
got-
the chat that you had something.
No,
Mark Wallace has got a platter.
Mark Wallace was next, yeah.
Mark, talk so I can find you.
Okay, I'm here. Here's you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the platter that I did, and it's just a poplar. And I was watching Stuart Farini out of the UK did his ribbon platter, and this is just airbrushed with stencils and tape, and there's 3 different layers and 4 different colors, and you just put in stenciling and you just spray with your air gun. So that's what I've been doing this week. Actually, I did that.
That's very nice. Stuart is one of those channels that I love to watch.
Yeah, he's very creative. Lots of
Yeah.
different ideas.
It's a beautiful
Very
piece.
nice, Mark. Very nice.
Thanks.
Do we have anybody else for show and tell? Okay. Well, I guess that's it for show and tell. The Facebook challenge for July starts right now. So get your stuff on Facebook, get your questions out there, and make use of it. Like I said, it's a tool for the club. Our next meeting is going to be July 19th, same time, and it'll probably be a Zoom meeting. And so the Facebook challenge for that meeting will cut off at 12 a.m. on the 19th. So just get that out there. And I'm looking at my notes. I don't have a lot of other stuff here. So it's been a great meeting. Steve did a great job with the demo. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. And I think we're a little low on participation, probably because a lot of people are finally getting out of their houses and getting the heck out of Dodge. And that's good. So I just want to tell everybody to stay safe, turn safe, and we will see you in July. So take care, everybody.